Minister, we'll give you a second to leave the... So I'm going to ask the next group of presenters, Andrew Sloan, Nina Deeb, and the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario, to make their way up to the front of the room. I do have to ask the committee, in the original motion, we just had limited to one person per presenter in person, and the others could be virtual. We just asked for an exception. We do have enough chairs at the table that 2 representatives are in person for the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks and Treasurers. Is everyone in agreement with that? Okay. I'll ask them, please, Danielle and David, to take your seats. Thank you for that moment. So just as a reminder, each presenter will have 7 minutes for their presentation, and after we have heard from all the presenters, the remaining 39 minutes of the time slot will be for questions from members of the committee. This time for questions will be divided into 2 rounds of 6.5 minutes for the government members, 2 rounds of 6.5 minutes for the official opposition members, and 2 rounds of 6.5 minutes for the third party. We welcome everybody today, and if you please state your name for Hansard, you may begin, and I'll go to Andrew if you're ready first to begin your first 7 minutes, and when we get to questions, the official opposition will start. MPP Sadler, just to give you a heads up. Okay? Go ahead, Andrew.
Which button? Red?
You don't have to press the button, I'm sorry.
Wow.
They do it automatically and magically.
Well, I appreciate that. It's different than our council chambers. Andrew Sloan, Mayor of Central Elgin.
Yep,
all set?
Ahead. All set.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and esteemed members of the committee, and to Minister Flack. My name is Andrew Sloan, as I just said, and it is a distinct privilege to be here today representing the incredible community of Central Elgin as their mayor. We appreciate this opportunity to share our thoughts on Bill 9, a piece of legislation that frankly has significant implications for every municipality across the great province, including ours. In Central Elgin, we're not just committed to growth and vibrancy, we are deeply dedicated to upholding the highest standards of accountability and transparency in our local governance. It's what our residents expect and what they deserve. Let me be clear right from the outset, we unequivocally support the core objective of Bill 9, enhancing public trust and accountability within municipal governance by standardizing and reinforcing codes of conduct. That's a goal we can all get behind. The fact that this legislation is being reintroduced underscores a very real sentiment: the public's growing expectation for their elected municipal representatives to operate with the utmost integrity. Central Elgin has strong measures in place to support accountability. Our current code of conduct for members of council, along with a comprehensive procedural bylaw, aims to guide ethical behavior and ensure transparent decision-making for members of council. We're fortunate to have an established and highly respected Integrity Commissioner, Suzanne Craig, who serves as a vital resource for our council and a trusted point of contact for any public concerns. Our commitment to proactive accountability is demonstrated by our recent procurement process for the hiring of the Integrity Commissioner. We built in requirements for an initial meeting between council and the IC, mandatory training, and annualized reporting. I feel this proactive approach has resulted in a more productive and effective service arrangement. It allows the council to seek advice proactively rather than only engaging with the IC when issues arise. I'm pleased to report that just recently our council participated in a comprehensive training session with our new IC. I believe it was a helpful and engaging session leading to productive discussions amongst council members about our roles and responsibilities. This kind of proactive engagement is something we prioritize. We understand Bill 9 will bring a provincially standardized code of conduct. We support the initiative for promoting consistency and clarity. We expect the new code will cover gifts, benefits, hospitality, respectful conduct, including with the staff, confidential information, use of municipal property. In addition, we hope and believe the standardized code should clarify meeting decorum, social media use, official communication on behalf of council. I believe it's important that the new code clearly integrates with existing workforce harassment policies and support anti-retaliation protection for complainants and mandatory cooperation with the Integrity Commissioner. While we support the bill's intent, as a practical leader of a municipality, I must highlight some key areas, particularly regarding its implementation and potential impact on a municipality of our size. Increased workload for the Integrity Commissioner. We believe it's vital to have clarity on how this increased workload will be managed. Resource implications. Implementing these changes, including mandatory training, will require financial and human resources. We ask the province to provide support mechanisms like dedicated funding, standardized training materials, or adaptable templates for policies. Procedural clarity on seat vacancy recommendations. Well, and I was just listening here in the audience, while the intent to address serious contraventions is clear, we seek further clarification on the established procedural protocols for council votes on recommendations to vacate a seat. Ensuring a fair, transparent, and legally sound process for such a significant decision is paramount. Local context versus provincial standardization. You know, standardization has its benefits, but we're all very unique throughout the province. With these considerations in mind, Central Elgin respectfully offers the following recommendations to the esteemed committee. 1, to develop and provide clear, comprehensive provincial templates and guidelines. 2, offer readily accessible standardized training modules. 3, consider dedicated financial support. And 4, provide detailed procedural guidance. Central Elgin supports Bill 9's goal of strengthening accountability and transparency in municipal governments. Effective partnership between the province and municipalities is key to this implementation. By addressing these practical considerations, we believe the Municipality Act will achieve its goals, fostering greater public trust and more effective local governance across Ontario. Thank you for your time and to listening to Central Elgin's perspective. My thanks to the committee. I must say that we appreciate your outreach. We feel our value is heard on these important issues and are most appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sloan. Now, Nina, if you're ready, just state your name and then you can begin, please.
Good morning, committee, chair, and committee members. My name is Nina Deeb. I'm a full-time real estate broker for 30 years. Regarding this bill, Schedule 1, the City of Toronto Act, and Schedule 2, the Municipal Act, are both being amended by adding the following section. The Integrity Commissioner of Ontario, 1. The Integrity Commissioner shall perform the following functions. There are 5 functions that are listed. It is recommended to delete the fifth function, any additional function prescribed by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and to replace it with 5, accept and investigate complaints regarding elected officials and former elected officials from members of the public. It is recommended to delete the sections in both schedules as regulations. Section 10, the minister may make regulations. A, the manner in which complaints shall be provided to commissioners. B, the type of complaints in respect of which commissioners may refuse to conduct or continue an inquiry. And to insert in its place, 10, the minister must not interfere with any complaints to the Integrity Commissioner. The commissioner must be independent of the minister's influence. The commissioner will decide which complaints to refuse to conduct or to continue an inquiry on. The commissioner may accept complaints from citizens regarding any elected or formerly elected official. The expansion of the Integrity Commissioner of Ontario's functions should include accepting complaints from citizens. See the attached complaint from 2022 that I submitted to the Integrity Commissioner, which the Integrity Commissioner did not accept. It is not supported to create any new regulatory authorities for Integrity Commissioners. Centralization to Toronto is not supported. It is not supported to centralize the powers to the Ontario Integrity Commissioner. The power to remove elected officials is also needed at the provincial level. The provincial government requires strong watchdog oversights and investigation mechanisms. Relying on the RCMP to investigate the provincial government is not enough. There are 3 watchdog reports regarding the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the special report on changes to the Greenbelt, the Office of the Integrity Commissioner on Steve Clark, the Minister's zoning orders. Quoting from second reading, watching someone wield public power while we all stand by, legally powerless to remove them. Why did he stay? Because we didn't have a law. The minister was not removed from his position. Provincial public office is a refuge from accountability. The Ontario Auditor revealed through their report that the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing was issuing ministerial zoning orders rather than housing enabling enhanced ministerial zoning orders. MZOs cannot have conditions, but enhanced ministerial zoning orders can. When municipalities were supporting an MZO and requesting housing enabling conditions, the Minister of Housing should have educated the municipalities regarding the available mechanism and tool to do so. The Housing Ministry is not using their housing enabling tools. This minister's chief of staff ran the Greenbelt files without any supervision or oversight. The delegation of duties does not relieve the minister of any responsibility. We do need laws and tools to hold elected public officials accountable and for removal in very serious cases. The shortcomings are most obvious when it comes to the conduct of the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. When new housing enrollments have been slashed in half within 3 years, the provincial government only sat 23 days this year. We speak about the absences of councillors. Let's talk about the absences of the provincial government. Bill 6, the Safer Municipalities Act, criminalized homelessness with penalties of 6 months in jail and imposing $10,000 fines. Passing regressive legislation without any public hearings is not helpful. Criminalizing homelessness is not helpful. Fining people $10,000 that don't have homes is not helpful. If they had $10,000, they'd spend it on rent or maybe a hotel. 2024, new home enrollments were only 37,998. Housing starts continue to decline. This government's plan to build 1.5 million homes in 10 years will take almost 40 years at this rate. Since Ontario ventured into building more homes faster by legislation in 2022, the results have been the exact opposite. We are now only building half of the homes that we used to build. There are only half the number of shovels in the ground. This bill, as written, will reverse the elections of democratically elected officials by local population, by other elected officials. Would MPPs apply the same standards to themselves? Would MPPs support voting to remove other elected members of the Ontario Legislature? The decision for removal fallen on council members is not supported. This is guild socialism. The province must not apply rules and standards to others that they wouldn't apply to themselves. Regarding municipal councillors and mayors controlling multi-million-dollar budgets, the province controls $232.5 billion budget and did not hold any public hearings on this level of spending. Ontario's debt is increasing at a faster pace than the entire country of Canada. Yet no public hearings were held, and pre-budget hearings were canceled due to the early call of an election. I'm one of very few people in Ontario whose voice was heard. However, due to the early election, nothing was considered. $500 billion in debt requires public hearings and participation. This government is open for business and closed to the people of Ontario. I do support much of this bill with the noted amendments, and I do thank the government for bringing this bill forward, but it does need amendments. Thank you for having me here this morning, and I do look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much. We'll move over to the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks, and Treasurers of Ontario. Just state your names before you begin speaking, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Danielle Manton. Thank you, Chair, committee members, Minister Flack, and attendees. My name is Danielle Manton, and I am the 2025-2026 President of AMCTO. I'm also the City Clerk for the City of Cambridge. On behalf of the membership and staff of AMCTO, I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today as it relates to Bill 9, Municipal Accountability Act. The Association of Municipal Clerks Treasurers of Ontario represents over 2,300 members. Since 1938, we have provided education, accreditation, leadership, and management expertise for Ontario municipal professionals. We are one of Ontario's largest associations of local government professionals and the premier organization for professional development in the sector. Our members offer advice to municipal councils and are responsible for carrying out council's directions. That includes implementing new legislative requirements and all that encompasses, including Bill 9 should it pass the legislature. We also look out for the interests of municipal professionals across the province. Protecting the health and safety, well-being of municipal staff, elected officials, and the public is paramount, which is why we are pleased to see the changes to the accountability framework for members of council within this bill. While most municipal council staff relationships and interactions are positive, respectful, and focus on collaborating to achieve the community's goals, our members are telling us that overall, relationships between elected officials and professional municipal staff is increasingly more confrontational inside and outside of formal council meetings. Two things occur when abusive or threatening behavior from a council member or members is permitted to persist. It creates an unsafe working environment for municipal staff where there is little opportunity for that staff to effectively address council's behavior. It also creates, or at the very least, contributes to a negative organizational culture which eventually impacts a municipality's ability to attract and retain employees. AMCTO made a submission to the initial public consultation in 2021 and to the more recent regulatory posting when this bill was introduced during the last Parliament. We will share those in our written submission to the committee following today. But today, I will take the opportunity to highlight a few of our insights and recommendations: protections for staff, additional penalties, implications of two-step investigations, removal provisions, and model code and training. The bill addresses some of our previously raised concerns and allows for our recommendations related to code standards and training, among others. We appreciate the government's response to these recommendations. AMCTO appreciates the Integrity Commissioner of Ontario has a wealth of experience in supporting accountability and integrity within the provincial elected official system as a legislative officer. We also note that there are several differences between the provincial system and the local government system, not the least of which is a number of government and representatives across the provinces and the unique ways in which local governments operate. We would welcome an opportunity to work with the ICO, if the bill passes, to collaborate to identify the potential growing pains within a new framework and work through scenarios to determine how processes will be carried out. Here are a few areas where we feel there could be improvements to the proposed framework. In the current system, municipal staff, particularly senior municipal leaders, have nowhere to turn except council, who they are accountable to and may be unable to seek the remedy required in these situations. That would still be the case if the bill is left as written. While much of the details of the new framework are expected through regulations, AMCTO is flagging the need to encourage strong ties between the Code of Conduct and existing legislative employment standards and other interrelated policies. For example, aligning the council staff relations with the Occupational Health and Safety Act policies regarding workplace harassment and violence, as well as the Municipal Elections Act requirement for the use of corporate resources. Where existing legislation respecting workplace violence and harassment policies may not explicitly include elected officials, consequential amendments should be made to ensure that these are covered. Our view is that municipal councils have a duty of care for the welfare and well-being of employees of a municipality, including fostering a welcoming, supportive civil culture. The increasing incivility, harassment, and political interference in the duties and responsibilities of municipal administrators is problematic, and not only from a physical, mental, and emotional well-being perspective, but it has implications from a recruitment and retention perspective as well. Municipal staff require a place to turn for advice and support when it comes to problematic or troublesome interactions with members of council. This has been exacerbated by the strong mayor system, which puts CAOs and senior leaders in tenuous positions. Some solutions to better protect municipal staff are needed. To foster a culture of accountability and transparency in employment matters, AMCTO continues to call for the removal of strong mayor powers related to employment. Our members believe that the sector would benefit from additional penalties to discourage poor or bad behavior that not meet the threshold for removal. The committee should look to other Canadian jurisdictions, which sets out a wide range of sanctions. There are some concerns about the length of this process, given it creates the need for 2 inquiries if a local integrity commissioner decides to pursue course of action. It could further be lengthened if a member is subject to investigation were to request a judicial review, which would require a 3rd inquiry. This lengthy process requires witnesses and the complainant to be interviewed multiple times. In cases of harassment, that may be very damaging and challenging. Again, from an implementation perspective, there could be a challenge with subsection 223.4.0.4.5, which deals with consequences of the ICO's recommendations to council. Thank you. In closing, I'll wrap up. We would encourage the committee to review the materials we will be submitting, as there are a number of other areas that would benefit from legislative clarity, filling in some gaps, including timelines for investigative scenarios that may disrupt proceedings, procedural practicalities, and notice of reports. I thank you very kindly for listening to us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentations. We'll now begin with questions, and the official opposition, MPP Sattler, if you would begin, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to our 3 deputants for attending this important process today and providing some recommendations. I want to begin with the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks, and Treasurers of Ontario, and certainly I have seen the surveys that you have conducted that highlight the increased incidence of abusive behaviors in the workplace that municipal staff are experiencing, and I am really appreciate your recommendations about changes that could be made to this bill to protect staff from abusive behavior. You mentioned that you will be bringing forward some more detailed recommendations in your brief, but could you speak now as to just kind of a summary of what kinds of changes you would like to see in this bill that would help address the abusive behaviors that staff might be on the receiving end of?
Thank you very much for your question. I think that we would like to see just further enhancement of the requirement for training of council, and in possibly making it, although it's mandatory, making it something that is regularly reviewed from the IC and council themselves to further educate council and make it something that they are constantly aware of. We also think that codes of conduct should be tied to other existing legislative standards, such as the occupational health and safety and the municipal council and staff relations policy. Those are just a couple of changes that I can speak to high level. I don't know if David, if you have something.
Thank you for that. You also talked in your presentation just now, you talked about the need for additional penalties for bad behavior. One of the concerns that I have heard very strongly about this bill is the fact that egregious behavior that might trigger, an investigation by a municipal integrity commissioner, and then the provincial integrity commissioner recommending removal. If it goes back to council and there is not a unanimous vote, then there could be no consequences whatsoever. I wondered if you could elaborate a little bit about the additional penalties that you would like to see, and do you believe that if there is not a unanimous consent vote, there should still be the ability to impose some kind of consequence or penalty on the councillor who was engaging in such egregious behavior that it triggered these investigations in the first place?
AMCTO's interests are in protecting staff, as well as ensuring that operations are not impacted by the lack of clarity and inability to resolve some of these issues. So it would seem to us that there should be somewhat progressive penalties to try and ensure remediation or correction of behaviors to avoid constant disruption. I think that one of the pieces around training that could be considered as additional training, not just a one-time beginning of a term training, but ongoing training, so that it's constantly top of mind for councils. I don't think that if we had that ongoing training and awareness, we would end up in a situation where we would get to removal, or I certainly hope it would help diminish some of that. In terms of your question around, do we believe that if there is not removal passed by a local council, should there be additional penalties? I definitely think we'd be open to exploring that on behalf of our members. I can't speak specifically on whether or not we think there should or should not be, but I definitely think there's room for improvement.
Okay. And I also was struck by your comments about the lengthy process that is set out in this bill, and the investigation that would involve interviewing witnesses, and certainly in the recent case in Ottawa with Councillor Shirelli, and we know that there were a number of witnesses who were interviewed, and the re-traumatization that they experienced throughout that interview process. What recommendations would you have to try to limit that re-traumatization that may be experienced? And do you have some specific suggestions about how the process could be streamlined so it doesn't carry out over such a long time frame?
Thank you for that question. I do believe that a lengthy process does potentially cause harm to those that may be victim to a situation. And I think repeated questioning is also very traumatic. It can be. So I do personally have concerns about that on behalf of our membership. However, I think that given that we will be providing a submission following today, I think we would like to give more consideration to specifically how we think that that could be streamlined. I do think there's some opportunities there, especially in that two-step piece, but
45 seconds.
We would like a little bit more time to think about what those specific recommendations would be.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, just quickly, you talked about your support for training, and you've mentioned that in your responses to me. Do you see opportunities to even strengthen the provisions that are included in this bill around training?
I do. Thank you for that question. I do think that there's an opportunity to do more training of councils. So it's typical that you would have training at the beginning of a term from your integrity commissioner to your council. On the code of conduct, I could see this becoming something, I could see us recommending that we would ask for annual training. Quite often, as a member of council, you're dealing with many different demands and constituent inquiries and large issues, and I think that this training would keep that at the forefront.
Thank you very much for your time. We'll go to the third party, MPP Watt.
There we go. Thank you. My first question is going to be for Mayor Sloan. Something that you had mentioned was kind of the concern around financial help and resources. Now, I'm more familiar with the City of Ottawa, and we are going through quite a bit of budget issues and stresses right now. And when the government implements something like this, I find in history it often does not come with those things. Certainly expecting something to be implemented within a certain time frame. So I'm just wondering, from your experience and the municipality that you come from, what is something that the provincial government could do to help address those stresses with you?
Thank you very much for the question. We have a budget where a 1% increase translates through to $170,000. So not a lot of industry. As you know, our agricultural friends pay less than market value for their taxes. So for any new program, and as we say, and I like the discussion about things being progressive, penalties. I thought that was an excellent comment. So we're limited in what we can do. We try to offer fiscal responsibility to our constituents. I'll give you an example. I mean, the province, last year we were faced with, as were other municipalities, with increased costs for OPP. That was going to be a real hit. and the province stepped in, which we very much appreciated, and subsidized it for us because that was an unexpected increase due to the labor situation and the costs that were attributed to all municipalities. So I think what we need in areas like Central Elgin is an understanding that we don't have the same budget as some of the larger venues, but we have the same needs. And when it comes to anything that the bill purports with respect to trying to make things more democratic, we think it's an important venture. We think it's important that there's also, to show how important it is, there's a contribution from the province for those that don't have perhaps as much revenue as others.
Thank you very much. My next question is for Ms. Manton. I was quite moved by your presentation, and in particular bringing up the idea of re-traumatizing victims, essentially. It's kind of that mix of we want it to be a strong and accountable process, but we also need to remember the victims at the end of the day. And something that you had mentioned was that you've seen an increase in confrontations between staff and elected officials. And this is kind of where my nurse brain kicks into gear, and I like to think about prevention, right? That upstream approach. And I'm wondering if you have any insight, I suppose, into what has been causing these increased situations of confrontations and stress, and I'm just wondering what we can do possibly to help address that instead of more Band-Aid solutions.
Thank you for your thoughtful question. I actually sympathize with elected officials. I think that we are seeing incivility on the rise across our country and North America, and I don't know what the source of that is. I'm sure that there's lots of different theories out there. However, I do sympathize with elected officials because I think that they are receiving quite a large amount of incivility themselves, whether it be from constituents who maybe have misunderstanding of jurisdiction of local councils or otherwise. But I also know that staff are seeing that, and staff are feeling that pain as well. As it relates to actual integrity commissioner matters, I really do feel that the only step to really help improve this is the training piece. I keep harping on that, and I'm sorry, but I really do feel like that increased awareness, and I don't necessarily think this needs to be in closed session. It should be open session training that our public also is privy to, that staff see as well. And I recognize that these integrity commissioner reports that come forward sometimes, and whether there's 2 steps, 3 steps, whatever it may be, could further victimize somebody who's involved, but that could also be an elected official. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about the staff and council relation. It is also about the public. It's about the people that elect their elected officials. It's about the elected officials themselves. So I really think that the widespread, the bill changing to require annual training will help in the long run.
Thank you, and I'm a big believer in education, and I couldn't agree more that access to this type of training is going to be key and huge in addressing that. That's definitely something that I will be advocating for within this bill, is to make sure that
50 seconds.
Thank you. Not only do we make sure that everyone in every municipality has access and resources to this training, but that it'll be effective and helpful as well. So just, thank you all so much for coming here today and sharing with us. I think...
Yep, okay, please go ahead.
I just wanted to answer your question with one of the issues. Social media is the problem of the lack of respect. It's infotainment. People don't think there's consequences for calling people names online. You've all gotten it, everyone that's an elected official. They call them keyboard warriors, but that to me has taken down. You used to have to write a letter to the editor. They had to check the information. They had to say whether it was true or false, but you can put anything online. And as a newer politician, for me, one of the local mayors said, your skin will thicken. It does. Ultimately, just to say, I think that
Thank you. Sorry about that, but thank you. We're out of time. Okay, over to the government side, MPP Sandhu.
Thank you, Chair, and I would like to thank all the presenters for being here today and for your presentation. I would like to direct my question to Mayor Sloan. Mayor, good to see you. I believe we had the opportunity to meet at the Roma conference, but good to see you again, and thank you for sharing your insights and providing the feedback on this bill. My question to you is, do you think a centralized or regional system would be useful to assist smaller municipalities with providing access to integrity commissioner services?
Through the chair, thank you very much for the question. I think there's pros and cons. We have in Central Elgin had 2 integrity commissioners. One which was not as proactive, not as interested in understanding a small community versus the one that we have now that, as I would say, is far more proactive and gets it. So there's a certain amount of discretion that goes with the integrity commissioners. I think there needs to be some standardization. I mean, I feel I'm mincing words here because you're asking me if I'm a big thinker or a details guy, and in that interview question you're supposed to hit a little on both of them, I think. But I think a standardization process with perhaps some influence by the actual municipality as we do on other issues.
Thank you. Before I pass to my colleague, another question is, what do you think are the most important considerations for effective code of conduct that balances the needs of different municipalities?
The most important...
code of conduct. The code of conduct?
For the code of conduct?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a code of conduct at Central Elgin that's very rigorous, and I mean, we take issues with, if council breaks the rules, they're taken to the integrity commissioner. She makes a ruling on it. I think that when it comes to providing detailed procedural guidance on how the process works for municipalities is always beneficial. I believe that, when you become an MPP or an MP, I was reading about the recent election, and you have a liaison officer from the ledge, as you guys call it, or the Queen's or the House of Commons. You also have party systems where there's support. You don't have that in a small municipality. I mean, the CAO gives a call and says, the first meeting is going to be December the 5th. We hope you can make it. So I believe there's opportunities for support that have been mentioned.
Thank you.
Thank you. MPP Saunderson, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. How much time do I have?
3.5 minutes.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. And thank you to all of our panel for coming here today and sharing your feedback on this important legislation. My first question I'm going to direct to you, Ms. Manton. I come from the municipal sector. I was in the municipal sector for 8 years and served as the mayor of Collingwood for the last 4 of those. So I'm very interested in your comments about the staff council dynamic. We had a judicial inquiry where it was 306 recommendations from Justice Morocco, and if you want to talk about lengthy proceedings, those are one of them. But there was a very important proceeding, and I think I see in this in this legislation a reflection of many of Justice Morocco's recommendations. But one of the key issues there was undue influence by particular council members over staff, and a staff member, a CAO, was released, terminated, and so I mean, it's part of that world, your world, isn't it, this type of friction. So, and your comments about incivility. So, I just like to get your comments then on, first, the idea of a standardized code of conduct, and then tug on the thread of the training and consistency across the province, because right now I don't think we're seeing that. And maybe you can comment on whether you think we're seeing consistency in this integrity commissioner relationship right now. But I'll start you off with just the standardized code of conduct and whether or not you see helpfulness and consistency there.
Thank you for your question. I do think that there's some benefit to consistency. I think that there's some inequities across codes of conduct throughout the province, and I think that having a consistent provincially mandated code of conduct could be a positive thing. I don't necessarily look at it as a negative. I also think that it could if mandatory training comes along with that and it's a rigorous training, whether that be annually or whatever, I think that that also helps strengthen that code of conduct. Obviously, I would hope that amendments as needed could be made as well, but I definitely think there's benefit to a consistent code of conduct. I also think that sometimes codes of conduct can become aged quickly and require review, and that takes a great amount of time of the Integrity Commissioner and quite often municipal staff and then council to review, and sometimes that ends up getting kicked around a lot. So providing that mandated consistent approach, I think, is a good thing.
And one of the intentions of when we first came out with the Integrity Commissioner scenario was that it's a, pardon me?
1 minute?
1 minute. It's a two-way dialogue. In other words, the commissioner is not just there to punish if somebody steps out of line. They're there to educate and train. And different municipalities having different relationships. And we heard from Mayor Sloan about his experience with 2 different Integrity Commissioners. But the idea of having the Integrity Commission there to train council, to work with council, and while I was mayor, we had our Integrity Commissioner in 3 times for training sessions and on one opportunity just to review and update our code of conduct. So, you know, I appreciate your comments about the training because it is an iterative process. And if you had your way in the world of training, what would you like to see in the training program?
Thank you for that question. I think that there's an opportunity for the IC to play a role in that training, but I also think there's an important role for staff to play, whether that's the CAO or clerk or another municipal leader. I think it's important that only helps build trust between elected officials and their municipal staff. I think interactive training, not just case studies, is important, so where they're really getting an opportunity to work through some scenarios. I think that helps everybody absorb differently and learn differently. So I think just really, it doesn't necessarily need to be a mandatory training from the province. It could be required that staff design that training in consultation with their Integrity Commissioner.
All right.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we're out of time. Yep. But we have another round, which we will go over to the official opposition MPP, Sadler.
Thank you very much, Chair Scott. I want to focus this second round of questioning on the issue around the vote that could be taken in council following 2 Integrity Commissioner investigations if there is support for removal of a member. Mayor Sloan, you mentioned this in your comments, that there is a need for clarity around the protocols involved in that council vote, and Ms. Manton, I noticed in your February 2025 submission to the regulatory posting, that was also a concern that you identified, the clarity around members who are absent during the vote. So I would actually appreciate hearing from both of you a little bit more about those concerns, if there isn't clarity, and any suggestions you might have to strengthen the bill and address this issue. So I'll start with Mayor Sloan.
Goodness, I was going to defer to down the hall. Now, Ms. Sattler, you've had far more experience in municipal government through the school board than I have. And I say that only as a mayor for 2.5 years. And I mean, I came here today partly learning from the comment that was made by my colleague here to say that what happens after if there is 1 vote against. I mean, on a 7-person council, the person that's accused doesn't vote, correct? And then that would be 1 person recuses. You'd have 5 of the 7 suggesting this person be removed. I'm looking for you. I'm looking to the committee for the answer on that one, because quite frankly, I don't know how that would go. And I brought up earlier how they talked about, I think your comment was progressive, wasn't it? Progressive penalty? So I'm going to pass down respectfully, pass down to someone who's been in the job a little more. I know there's an issue, but I don't have all the answers on how that issue is remedied, especially when it's a huge piece of having someone removed from office. And that's for wiser folks than me, I'm afraid.
Okay, Ms. Manton.
Thank you for your question. AMCTO understands the need for a high threshold when removing an elected member of council from office. But we do think that the government could consider a voting threshold of 2/3 of council, as AMO has also proposed. I would like to highlight that it's one of the roles, I think, of the head of council is to also consider council's cohesion and how they work together, and to actually have an integrity commissioner matter go through 2 independent accountability officers, only to then put the onus on that council, who is also meant to collaborate and be united in some of their decision-making where possible. It's very difficult for a council to show up and have to have an unanimous vote on something that is actually affecting one of their own members. So I do think that looking at a threshold of 2/3 of council would be something that we would recommend.
Okay, and sort of further to that, I mean, one of the biggest, I think, criticisms about this bill has been the risk that it creates of politicizing the process when you put it back on council with that requirement for a unanimous vote for removal. So, you know, the fact that you are now looking at or thinking that a 2/3 vote would be a better approach, does that mean that you share some of those concerns about the politicization? And can you elaborate a bit more about that?
Thank you. We do share those concerns about the politicization. Ultimately, I think that it puts council in a very difficult position to have to make those decisions. 2/3 would be the best case scenario if we are forced to have it come back to council after going through 2 steps of an accountability officer. And then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we will provide further comment in our submission as it relates to what those progressive penalties could look like, or instead of a removal, what the option could be if removal was not passed.
Okay. And an earlier iteration of a draft bill that was never tabled back in 2021 had a completely independent judicial process, that there would be a judge who would be involved in making the recommendation for removal. Is that something that you would support, or do you feel that the 2/3 council vote is a better solution?
Minute and 10 seconds.
Thank you. There are several options that I think the government can consider, including bringing an application before the court. We know that it was part of AMO's original recommendation, and we're very supportive of this. Should the government consider that mechanism, AMCTO recommends promoting greater knowledge of municipal issues in the judicial system.
Okay. And then the last question I wanted to ask was very quickly around the financial pressures on smaller municipalities. And you, Ms. Manton, may also have a sense of this, but would you support the need for some dedicated funding for smaller municipalities to handle this process that's set out in the bill?
Thank you. Yes, I think AMCTO would be very supportive of assistance to smaller municipalities for this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to the third party. MPP Watt, please.
Thank you very much. I guess staying on theme with my colleague here, my question for Ms. Deeb. I see here that you had mentioned the decision for removal falling on council members is not supported, and that's kind of been a big topic of today, whether that's the appropriate method and threshold to remove someone from council. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that as it stands in the bill today, and what recommendations you would have for actually dealing with that removal.
Thank you for the question. I think the decision should go to a judge. I don't think that your peers are who should be making these decisions. It is politicized, and if you've, like, I've spent a lot of time at the municipalities. This is actually my municipality right here. I do spend a lot of time. I delegate to every level of government, so it should not be your peers. It should be somebody that is non-arm's length that could make that decision. I think that we're not going to get anywhere when it's your peers. It's not fair to the peers, and it's not fair to the individual. That's my answer.
Thank you very much. And kind of going back to the training piece and where my colleague MPP Saunderson was discussing, if we were to do that, provide a centralized training and resources, how could we more effectively implement said training in every unique municipality like your own? Like, what would you like to see from us to help with that? It's kind of a question to all of you. I'll start with Mrs. Deeb.
So what would help to I think one of the things that would help is to have a clear set of rules. I often see people show up at council, they have no idea what the protocol is or the respect that's required, and they're speaking very fast, it's very heated. It would be very helpful for education. Education is the component that would help the most.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think on behalf of AMCTO, I would welcome the opportunity for us to work with the province on any training, but I also think there's multiple staff associations throughout our province that would also be open to potentially partnering and providing some assistance to design some training that would be consistent across.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you through the chair to the MPP. I had to have 3 hours of training to be on the OPP Police Services Board. I had to have 0 to be the mayor of Central Elgin. In-person training using real examples, opportunities to show best practices, all at the onset of the term. So, I mean, Minister Flack talked about May the 1st. I mean, we have to declare at the end by August something, but on day one, whenever the municipality starts, I think there should be some training. And we have, opportunities, as I say, through the police boards. For Elgin County, I had to do approximately 3 hours of training. Very, very, I'm not interactive online. I'm starting to sound like an old person, but I think that would be something, and that would give in-person and real examples that might be applicable.
Thank you. No further questions for me.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the government side. MPP Bailey, please, or Beacon, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question is to Ms. Manton. One of the issues, critical issues in this whole process is the fear of reprisal. And how can we work out a process where the victim will be protected from a reprisal?
Thank you for your question. I think that, as I've mentioned, there's an opportunity to align the work of this bill with other policies such as occupational health and safety. And I think that that is the way that we can look at protecting anyone who does come forward with these complaints. I think that having that consistent code of conduct across the province should reference all of the different acts and policies and legislation that exists that would assist and provide that kind of consistent thread throughout around protection of employees when it comes to harassment and workplace incidents.
And follow up, how can the government work with your organization to implement any changes through Bill 9?
So thank
because
you.
That is very important element.
And thank you for that. We welcome the opportunity to consult further. We will provide a follow-up submission following today, but we welcome further meetings with the province and anyone who wishes to meet with us to further discuss how we can improve and enhance this bill.
Thank you. My final question on this round, Brian, you want to go? Okay. My final question is to the mayor. Do you think a stronger relationship with the Integrity Commissioner of Ontario would enable local integrity commissioners and municipalities to deliver on their responsibility more easily and conveniently?
I believe so. In the short period of time, I think it would be of value to have some back and forth between the two. So I would say yes is the answer to the question.
Okay, so I'm done.
Thank you,
I
MPP
pass it to
Saunderson.
my colleague.
You have 4 minutes, basically.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm going to go to you, Mayor Sloan. I notice you work in the steel industry, so you've gone from the melting pot to the mayor's chair, and sometimes that chain of office is a little heavier than others, I know. So I appreciate your comments on knowing that $170,000 is 1% on your tax roll.
$17 million budget.
Yep. 170,000, sorry?
No, it's 170,000. It's a $17 million budget, so 1% is
Yeah.
170.
Yeah. So, and when I was in the mayor's chair, it was 336,000. So
Okay.
that's how you measure your world. And so I appreciate your concern there. And I know in my riding, I have 7 municipalities, and the smallest, $50,000 is 1% of that. So talking about bandwidth to ensure accountability and transparency, which is an important issue for all our residents, do you get an annual report from your integrity commissioner about the number of complaints and the cost that's occurred to the municipality each year?
Through the chair to the MP Saunderson, we did. I don't know if we did with the last one. We do with the current one. And as I was mentioning, she came in and spoke to us in camera, and we were going to have her back to speak in an open session. So I know we have it. We're going to have one with the last integrity commissioner. I'll ask our CAO. I don't think we did with the last one.
Okay, because I remember we would do the same, and annually we got a report, and on average, I think each complaint, at least ones that were got past the vexatious point, cost us on average about $8,000. And part of the issue, from my experience on that, was because every municipality may have similar provisions, but they have different wording. And so everything is creating, you know, they're starting to basically building a wheel every time you get a complaint. And so I think one of the big issues I see with the standardized code of conduct is the integrity commissioners know that it doesn't matter which municipality and what the size of the municipality is, the wording is the same, so it's really an application of that wording to the facts. So it actually, in my prediction, would help to assist to cap costs. It should become more efficient, particularly as the code of conduct gets applied across the province. Do you think that's the case?
I do, but our previous integrity commissioner charged us even to determine whether a claim was vexatious. So I've seen both sides, and I've seen that there are those that are looking at it more as a profit center than, and I'm not trying to, to impugn anyone.
50 seconds.
Thank you. I wish it was fewer. I think that, to answer your question, I agree with standardization of the rules. I have a little issue with implementation.
Okay. And part of this legislation is requiring the provincial integrity commissioner to be responsible for training and onboarding of integrity commissioners. So do you think that would help to address your concerns about the differential between how the disparity, I think, in skill sets and abilities of the various integrity commissioners?
I do.
Okay.
I also think that when we look at, people that are new, I talked about training for new people, also people that have been there a long time, because there's two different dynamics at play. If I'd been, the the mayor for 10 years or a councillor for 10 years, well, things will have changed as I've become part of, during my term. So I'm glad that the questions that the committee's taking on are being asked. They're important, and someone talked about or respectfully, you talked about whether Nina, said whether or not peers should be the people involved. What about, we done?
I am so sorry, we're out of time. Thank you for this morning to all the presenters that came. This committee stands in recess until 1 p.m. this afternoon, when we will resume public hearings on Bill 9.